Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be talking a little bit about the box office projections for Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, and also some initial reactions from the cast themselves with the ending of the film, which is very reminiscent of another project. But first, let's talk about The Hollywood Reporter. So this is going to be covered by DailyWire.com because I like DailyWire.com a lot more than The Hollywood Reporter, but it's still The Hollywood Reporter's report, and that is that Rise of Skywalker is projected to make between $175 and $200 million. Now, let's first off start off by saying that these projections this early on are not gospel. They are projections that could easily drop a great amount or could even rise a great amount. All of these are based off of the industry. It's based off of pre-sales, based off of general interest, which means it's essentially a guessing game. Now, are they usually on the mark? They're usually within reason. They're usually definitely within the ballpark, but there are definitely times in which they can get it very wrong. Solo: A Star Wars Story is a great example of that because that movie was tracking for a very big opening weekend, and then as every week got closer, the number went down and down and down and ended up underperforming by a great amount. So we must keep that in mind, that there's a potential for this film to make much less, but there's also a potential for it to make more also. I might not want it to make more because of the current state of Star Wars, but I am at least going to be honest and open with you guys about that. So The Hollywood Reporter, as it says right there, between $175 and $200 million for its critical first weekend, which is indeed very true. But let's go ahead and compare that to some of the numbers that exist for the other films. Compare that to The Force Awakens, which came in with $248 million in its opening weekend, and The Last Jedi's $220 million tally on its first respective weekend. So that's an interesting number for a lot of different reasons. First off, this is the domestic number. So this is the US and Canada box office, the North American box office, really. And that is going to be the metric that we look at, because when it comes to the foreign totals, it's a lot harder to predict. I think that the movie will probably do pretty well in places like the UK or to other parts of Europe, because there are still going to be a lot of people that want to see how this ends. Even people that are frustrated with the current state of Star Wars, who love things like The Mandalorian but are critical of things like The Last Jedi. There's still a lot of people out there that might say, you know what, let's just go ahead and finish this damn thing and get it over with. I can understand why someone might feel that way. I personally don't feel that way because I think that it's already been destroyed by The Last Jedi, but again, that is just one of my opinions. But what is interesting is the fact that The Last Jedi did indeed make less domestically, and when you compare it to how much less it made internationally, it does speak volumes. Remember that The Force Awakens ended up making over $2 billion at the entire international box office, which makes a lot of sense because we had not had a Star Wars film in a long time. There was a lot of hype and a lot of excitement because Disney had finally gotten their hands on Star Wars, and we thought, hey, maybe they'll do something cool. Maybe they'll do something great with it. Let's talk about how there's a lot of potential with them owning it. We now know, of course, that they decided to go off in their own direction with it and pretty much run the franchise into the ground to the point where now we have a Star Wars film that has lost money. Looking at you, Solo: A Star Wars Story, but it is still interesting to look at the history nonetheless of what it was like during that time period. Fast forward a couple of years, and then we got The Last Jedi, which was the most divisive Star Wars film of all time, still is divisive, and is arguably the worst of the Star Wars films possibly of all time as far as what it did for canon. We can talk about the issues with dialogue, we can talk about the issues with characters and CGI in the prequels, but at least those stories didn't break canon. At least those stories made sense within the overall story that was being told. Last Jedi decided to take all of those things that have been previously established and say, I'm just going to do my own thing, because Rian Johnson even admitted this much. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm not going to worry about anything else, a past film or a future film. I'm just making a film for me. We see how that ended up turning out for itself. But when you go ahead and look to see how much money that movie made by the end of its run, it made $1.3 billion, around $700 million less than what The Force Awakens made. Now, this makes sense because of the law of diminishing returns. You normally have in a franchise, films over time tend to, not always, but tend to make less over a period of time for a wide variety of reasons. For one, when it first starts off, you have people that are excited about the project, and then there are some people that look and see and, hey, you know what, I don't really like this, I'm not going to be on board. On the flip side of that, sometimes you have something start off much smaller and grow over time because the audience builds. I look to things like John Wick, for example. John Wick 1 started off pretty small, but was still successful, and every single film so far has made more and more money because it started off much smaller and has been able to grow its audience. Star Wars audience was already so ginormous because of all the things that have been happening since the 1970s that when that first film came out, it did turn some people off. Not to mention, the reaction to The Last Jedi from week 1 to week 2 had a drop of around 68% in the marketplace, which goes ahead and show you that a lot of people did not want to go back to see it, and the word of mouth campaign was not very good for it. If you look to a lot of the reviews for that film, it obviously was very negative among the fans. You look to the critic reviews, it was very positive. You look to some of the verified Rotten Tomatoes audience scores, and they were pretty positive. But when you took a general sentiment of the overall Star Wars community, it was definitely a large portion that did not like it. And the box office does represent that very fact with making $700 million less. So what does that mean for The Rise of Skywalker? Well, if this film is set to make less than The Last Jedi did on its opening weekend, and again, these are all ifs, right? These are not facts at this point in time. These are all speculation. If the drop is going to be similar to that of The Last Jedi, then you're looking at a film that's definitely going to make less than $1 billion. That being said, if the drop is more in line with what The Force Awakens did and other films did between that 50 and 60% instead of over 60% drop from week 1 to week 2, then this film could potentially get to that $1 billion range. That's why my current prediction for what I think the box office will be is between $850 and $1.1 billion. Now, I could be wrong on that point. It could definitely make more than that, but it could also potentially make less than that too. I know the Disney machine, though. And I know that the Disney machine is going to try and take over every single theater and every single market in the country and in the world to put this on as many screens at as many times as possible. And because of that, they're going to oversaturate the market so much that that's the reason why I think this movie will still end up making money in the long run. Now, some might argue, well, why didn't they do that with Solo: A Star Wars Story? But remember, Solo did have a lot of issues, a lot of problems. Not just the fact that the film wasn't very good, but a lot of things surrounding the film were just in absolute chaos mode. And so it makes sense that that film did not resonate with the fans. Now, this film, I think, has already led to the loss of so many people because of The Last Jedi. So many fans have abandoned the sequel trilogy, have abandoned the Disney trilogy, as we're calling it now, because of all the crap that's happened since that movie, with people from Lucasfilm, people like Rian Johnson and others going after the fan base for merely being critical of their film, and rightly critical of their film as well. And what is interesting is to talk about what these numbers mean, and also I think to read more of the Daily Wire article because it does add some more context. So as it says over here, it says that's a potentially sharp fall for a saga Disney hopes to spin off a number in new ways. So as you can see there, even they are noticing, yeah, there's a giant drop between The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and if it's coming in under $200 million or around $200 million, it's coming in even under The Last Jedi, which indicates that you've lost more and more of your fan base. Now, what I think they're hoping is that The Mandalorian will get some interest back, but because The Mandalorian is not likely going to tie into the sequel trilogy, though at the end of the day, they could have it end with a cliffhanger that makes people want to go see it because of the fact that The Mandalorian is going to be opening, or rather is going to be continuing long past the opening of the film. They may not actually go in that direction, which personally I would be all on board with. It goes on, says, the Hollywood Reporter's spin machine quickly revved up to defend the modest numbers. That's on par with early forecasts for The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, the subhead reads. So they're already trying to spin it. The Disney shills are already out trying to spin the numbers, saying, oh, even though it's coming in underneath The Force Awakens, etc., then we still need to understand. Well, remember this. The Force Awakens did over expectations because people underestimated the power of the Star Wars fan base. That's the reason why the film did so well. It's not because it was the best Star Wars film of all time. It's because we were hungry for a Star Wars film at that point in time. You add on top of that the fact that, yeah, it may have had early projection for The Last Jedi, but The Last Jedi also was coming out in the wake of that very successful film, which makes a lot of sense. The reason why those numbers are more likely true, the 175 to 200 million and maybe even less than that, is because of all of the fans basically abandoning the Disney Star Wars trilogy since that movie came out because of all the nonsense. It goes on. Actually, Box Office Pro forecasts a $215 million total for The Last Jedi, darn near close to the actual numbers. Other outlets saw The Last Jedi hitting over $200 million as well. The Force Awakens also had some suggesting it would eclipse the $200 million mark too. Here is the Hollywood Reporter spinning even more on the saga's behalf. Lucasfilm and Disney are trying to manage expectations to Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, considering the volatile state of the box office. And Skywalker also faces competition from Jumanji: The Next Level. Are they honestly trying to use the third film? Let me put this out there. I like the first Jumanji film. I really like the Jumanji sequel that came out not too long ago. And now they're trying to say that that's actual competition to Star Wars? Again, I like Jumanji, but you're trying to tell me that Star Wars is going to have competition from the third Jumanji film? Man, oh man. How the Mighty Have Fallen, which hits theaters a week earlier and is showing sizable strength on tracking. I wonder why. Probably because they gave a lot of people what they wanted, which was a fun, entertaining film, and the sequel promises to offer most of the same. We really can't say much for the same. We cannot say much of the same for the Star Wars franchise. Volatile box office. This is a Star Wars movie, one meant to cap a saga that was dominating pop culture for 40 plus years. Jumanji is tracking in the $40 million plus range, hardly a mortal threat to Lucas's space opera. Variety even used similar verbiage to describe Disney managing expectations, framing the new film's shrinking predictions as mighty. Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker is powering towards a mighty opening weekend when it hits theaters December 20th. The far left Deadline.com reported even sillier. As of 8 a.m., one tracking firm says 175 million, but that seems low. Working in Skywalker's advantage is that Abrams and stars Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver are already hitting the talk show circuit to generate heat. But no one really listens to the talk shows anymore. They don't have the same power as they once did. You can go ahead and look to the fact that there have been several movies that have been promoted on those talk shows that have not done well at the box office. Looking at you, Charlie's Angels. So we really know that they don't really have all that much impact. So actually, kudos to you, Christian Toto, for this article, because I think that you add a lot of necessary context to these numbers. And on top of that, you have this image right here from the reaction. Look at Daisy Ridley's image. Look at that. Doesn't that remind you a lot, and some of the others' reaction? Oh, look at Kelly Marie Tran, too. Doesn't that remind you a lot of the Game of Thrones reaction? Doesn't that remind you a lot of how they responded? And guess what we got? Total garbage. Now, am I saying that this movie is going to be total garbage? No. I'm not saying that. I haven't seen the movie yet. I cannot say that at this time. But what I am saying is that based on their reaction and based on the media's reaction trying to cover for the under expectations and lower than expected box office reports, it seems to me that the shill media is out in full shill mode, ready to defend this film, and I cannot wait to see the headlines, because if this film succeeds, it will say the fandom menace failed. It'll say the fans were wrong, etc., etc. Again, it'll throw it all in their faces. And if it fails, if it comes in around 175 million or even less than that, then they'll go to the blame game. And every single person that's blamed will not be J.J. Abrams, will not be Kathleen Kennedy, or anyone a part of Lucasfilm, but instead, once again, just like always, the fans' fault. Let me know your thoughts about this. What do you think Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is going to make at the box office? Do you think opening weekend is going to be between $175 and $200 million? I think that sounds pretty reasonable to me. As I said before, I think that the film's going to be big. How big is going to really be determined based on general interest, which to me is pretty low at this point in time when you compare it to previous years, previous Star Wars films, and also the very fact that they continue to go out to the fans every single second of the way. Also, what are your thoughts about this commentary by this reporter from Daily Wire? I think it's actually pretty spot on by saying, let's look at the actual numbers here. Let's look at the spin that they're putting onto this news, and let's show why they're being hypocritical of their spin. I love when media companies expose the spin that so many of these media shills have. It's always a wonderful thing to see. So let me know that and all the things we talked about in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful night, and as always, God bless.